Today's shir is Yosef's brothers. Don't confuse me with the facts. Okay?
It sounds like the world today.
That's the world today, right? We tie it in, of course, to current events.
Don't confuse
right? Right. Don't confuse me with the facts. My mind's made up. Vayaka Yosef es echa v'heim lo yikiruhu. The brothers come down to buy food. Yosef recognizes his brothers, but they do not recognize him.
Right.
It's only 22 years, right?
Right.
Only 22 years. So Rashi says, Vayaka Yosef, Yosef recognized them because when he left them, they had a beard. V'heim lo yikiruhu. But they did not recognize him, says Rashi, because when he left them, he had no beard, and now he has a beard. So what? You don't recognize your brother. So he has a beard, doesn't have a beard. It's only 22 years.
Yeah, but he's wearing the white.
So, but still a brother. A brother. The problem is, Mikimia, the brothers were in total denial. Like some of our government officials. They're in total denial. Yosef is standing in your face, right? And they're none so blind as he who will not see. They were so totally denial that the truth was staring them in the face, and they couldn't see it. It sounds chava like some of our lefties, our Peace Now or the J Street, right? No, Abu Mamzer is still a partner, despite all. Right? Don't confuse me with the facts. My mind is made up. It's unbelievable. People have this mindset. Later on, Vayeshu he gives them, he invites them for dinner. And the Torah says in Miketz, Vayeshu Abchor kebchorosai, he sets the older one, Ruvain, in front, Vatzoy kitzarosai, and the younger one. And Rashi says he mentions their name. Reuven, you're the oldest. Shimon next. Levi next. Yehuda next. Yisachar, Zevulun. He knows all their names. He knows, Rabbi Yaakov, he knows how old they are. He sits them in order of their age. He calls them by name. And then he gets to Binyamin. And he says, Binyamin, well, I understand, Binyamin, that you have no mother. Your mother's dead. My mother's also dead. You sit next to me. And it says, the people, the brothers were shocked. And after all that, they still don't know that it's Yosef. The guy, the first time they met him, he says, Eshelakim ani yoreh. They think they're speaking to King Tut. King Tut says, Eshelakim ani yoreh. Now, isn't that a clue? Why would King Tut say, I fear God? And he keeps asking them about their old father. I mean, it's just unbelievable, Sonia, right? And he knows their names. He sits them in order of their birth. And no bells go off.
Not just in order of their birth, but in order of
in their names. He names them.
according to the mother.
Their people are shocked. They couldn't put 2 and 3 together. There's none so blind as he who will not see. The truth is standing in front of you, but they're so blinded by their previous mindset, they're so convinced that it can't be Yosef, that they were in total denial. And the message is that we have today a Paris Center for Peace. A Paris Center for Peace, right? Don't confuse me with the facts. The fantasy, a person can be so, how do you say fachadet in English? Fachadet. Fachadet mean, what? So, it's Yiddish, so set in their ways that they just don't get it. No, just don't get it. The truth is so plain, and they just don't get it. Today she just said, Sheli Yachamovich, she says, no, Abu Mamzer is still a peace partner. Despite everything, Beryl, this morning she said, he's still a peace partner. I mean, just unbelievable how people can become so totally brainwashed that the brothers just couldn't see the truth staring them in the face. They figured it can't be Yosef. and therefore even when he was standing in front of them, they totally denied it. It's amazing that Rabbeinu Bechai points out that in Parshas Miketz, the brothers are not called Achim. They're not called Bnei Yaakov. They should be called Achei Yosef or Bnei Yaakov. 10 times they're called Ha'anoshim. If you count, the brothers are called 10 times Ha'anoshim. The men, with the Hey HaYediyah. Rabbeinu Bechai quotes the Zohar that who are these 10 Anoshim? Who are they? Asur Harugei Malchus. They are the 10 martyrs who were the souls of the brothers. Now the brothers were never punished for their crime. Never. Yosef never said, I forgive you. And we know in Jewish law, kidnap and selling a Jew into slavery is a capital punishment. The brothers were never punished. So centuries later, they came back as the Ha'anoshim.
Why should he forgive them?
1 minute. As the 10 men who were the 10 martyrs who were the Gilgulim of the 10 brothers of Yosef. Because God has a long memory. Kidnapping and selling a brother is a capital punishment. They were not punished, but centuries later they were punished when they were brought back as the Ha'anoshim, and therefore 10 times in Parshas Miketz they're not called Achim, but they're called Ha'anoshim with the Hey HaYediyah, these 10 men. The Ari HaKodesh points out, twice a year we read the account of the 10 martyrs, Sonia, twice a year. Once on Yom Kippur, and once when? On Tisha B'Av. Now I understand why you read the account of the 10 martyrs on Tisha B'Av. Because Tisha B'Av deals with the Holocaust, destruction, the murder of Jews. So the 10 martyrs fits with the topic of the day. But why do you read the account, Chav, of the 10 martyrs on Yom Kippur? What has it got to do with Yom Kippur? Murdering, the death of the 10 righteous, what has it got to do with Yom Kippur? So the answer is as follows. Yosef HaTzadik never forgave the brothers. I don't need the water, thank you. I don't need the water. Tada, hello? I don't need it. Yosef HaTzadik never forgave the brothers. He never said the word salachti. Yom Kippur, we know, the Mishnah says Yom Kippur only atones for sins between what? Man and man and man. Yom Kippur does not atone. So we read the 10 accounts of the Asur Harugei Malchus on Yom Kippur because Yosef never said salachti. They said, please forgive us. Sana pesha avdecha. They said it twice. He never said salachti. He said, am I in God's place? God will take care of you. So it's read on Yom Kippur that Yom Kippur won't help. Sins between man and man, acting against a fellow Jew, selling a fellow Jew, slandering a fellow Jew, selling him figuratively or literally, Yom Kippur is not going to help. And therefore we read the account on Yom Kippur because the brothers had to come back as Gilgulim because Yosef never said salachti. Yom Kippur doesn't help for sins between Adam lechaveiro. So to highlight that, we read the account of the 10 brothers on Yom Kippur. Because if Yosef would have said salachti, Yehuda, they would not have to be reincarnated and suffer the tragedies that they suffered. So it's very careful. Someone wrongs you, he apologizes, say salachti. The brothers said, Sana, please forgive us. Yosef never said salachti, and therefore they had to be reincarnated as the 10 martyrs.
Why does he have to say, I forgive?
He never said, Rabbeinu Bechai points out, he never forgave them. He never said salachti. He said, Asachas Elokim ani, am I in God's place? Beryl, God will take care of you. What? They begged him for forgiveness. He never said.
Where?
Yes, it did. The end of the parsha. Please read the book. It says at the end of the parsha, whatever it is, at the end of the parsha, they say, the end of parsha is Vayichi, that we just read yesterday. They said, Ona sana pesha achecha v'chatasam, and they said it again, and he never said salachti. He said, Hasachas Elohim ani, Am I in God's place? Whatever. But Rabbeinu Bachai points out, since he never said Salachti, therefore they had to be reincarnated as what? As the 10 Ha'anoshim. Therefore they're called 10 times Ha'anoshim and not Achim or Bnei Yaakov. But some people just don't get it. Even at the end, it says Yosef's brothers saw that their father was dead. What do you mean they saw? They just came back from the funeral. What do you mean they just saw?
They were scared.
Right? So Rashi says they recognized a change in Yosef's attitude when the father died. When the father was alive, Yosef would always invite them for dinner in the royal table. And he would do that, Bishvil Kavod Aviv. Umeshemet Yaakov loy karvan. When Yaakov died, all of a sudden, Yehuda, the invitations to the royal dinner party stopped. So they said, aha. They said, Lu yistamenu Yosef. Lu. What does Lu mean?
Would it be?
Lu. Now Rashi says, Shema. Perhaps Yosef will hate us. But the Vilna Gaon points out that how do you say perhaps in Hebrew? Ulai. They don't say Ulai, they say Lu Yistamenu Yosef. And Rashi says that the word Lu sometimes means halavai. What?
Like I wish you would hate him?
What? Chava, get real. Rashi points out Lu sometimes means Ulai, perhaps, and sometimes it means halavai. If only Yosef would hate us. So the Vilna Gaon points out, if it meant perhaps, based on this Rashi, they should have said Ulai. Perhaps Yosef will hate us now. Why did they say Lu, which Rashi says could also mean halavai? So the Vilna Gaon says they still don't get it. They still don't get it. Halavai, Yosef will hate us. To justify their hatred for him. They, all these years, they're living with a heavy guilt trip barrel. We did him such a nasty deed to our brother. But if Yosef hates us now, it's going to show them, Afreya, Rabbi Yaakov, that we were right. He is no good from the beginning, from the get-go. Wow. So Vilna Gaon points out, Lu Yistamenu Yosef. Halavai. Yosef will hate us. Look, we were right. We were justified to do what we did to him many, many years ago. They still don't, because he hates us. They still don't get it. They still don't get it. And Rashi points out the word Lu sometimes means Ulai and sometimes means Halavai. And the Vilna Gaon says, yes, in this case it means Halavai. They're justifying their hatred for him and selling him. Look, he's taking revenge against us. But of course that was wrong. But they had this mindset. Don't confuse me with the facts, Yehuda. My mind is made up. Now, the question is, why did Yosef stop inviting them? When Dad was alive, Rashi said he invited them to the royal banquet, Bishvil Kavod Aviv. Umishemet Yaakov, when Yaakov died, he no longer invited them to dine with him. So they said, aha! We were right. You see that? He hates us. So what's the real reason? Huh? So they thought, with their guilty conscience, that he's doing it because what? He hates them. But Shimshon of Full Hirsch points out, Sonia, no, it's the way of the world. When parents are alive, siblings tend to be close. And when parents die, says Hirsch, it's the way of the world that what? Siblings drift apart. But they attributed sinister motives to him because of their guilty conscience. But he didn't mean nothing by it. Nechama, this is the way of the world. Well, it's not true. Well, Shur says it is true. It was true in Yosef's case. That, right? Used to go to, Papa was around. The family stayed close. And now it's the way of the world when parents die. Siblings have their own interests and they just don't get together as much as they did And that's what Yosef had in mind, but they felt otherwise because of what?
Guilt.
Of their guilty conscience, their guilty conscience. Now, Yosef meant nothing by it, even though he never said Chava Salachti. He never said it. He said, God will take care of you. But he had no ill feelings to them. He didn't take revenge against them. And therefore, at the end of the Parsha, Yosef tells his brothers, I am dying, and I make you swear. On Yosef's deathbed, he called his brothers, and he made them swear that when I die, and you guys come out. He couldn't say, take me out now, because Pharaoh would not allow it. Even as viceroy of Egypt, he had to beg Paroi to take his father out. Right? And Pharaoh said, only because you swore, so there's no way that they're going to let Yosef's body out now. So he didn't even ask for it. He just made them swear, when God remembers you, when God remembers you, I make you swear, take my body along to Eretz Yisrael. Now, isn't it strange, Chava, at a person's deathbed, who does he usually summon? His children. His children. Here, Vayomer Yosef el Echav. Isn't it strange that who did he summon to his deathbed? His brothers. He should have summoned his kids. What about Ephraim and Manasseh? And he had many grandchildren also. Why did he make the brothers swear and not his own children? Isn't that strange? Says Rav Soloveitchik something incredible. Yosef felt the brothers' anguish. He knew they had a guilty conscience. They couldn't live with themselves. He wanted to give them a way that they can what? Pay him back. He wanted to give them his damnut, to remove the stigma and the bizoyon. So therefore he said, guys, brothers, I'm giving you a way where you can pay me back. You can do for me which I can't do for myself. I'm not going to tell my kids to do it, but by making you swear to take my body up, I am giving you a chance to express your gratitude, to somehow make it right with me. That's how much he loved the brothers. And therefore, Rav Soloveitchik explains, he made the brothers swear to take him up and not his own sons, thereby giving them, Beryl, the opportunity of being makir tov, hakora tatov, somehow to remove the bizoyon and the stigma and the shame which they felt all these years crushed by. And that's how much Yosef cared about his brothers, and therefore he commanded them and not his own children. Somehow this will relieve them, partially, not all the way of course, of the guilt by doing for them what they cannot Yiddish Chava, that's why he told the brothers, not his own children. And therefore, Kaddish is so important. Kaddish for a deceased parent is so important. All of us, I feel guilty. I didn't honor my parents enough in their lifetime.
I'm sure you did.
I feel guilty. But when you say Kaddish for them, that's a way, the Ben Ish Chai explains, it's a way of paying back. You're doing for them something they can't do for themselves. So when you say Kaddish for a deceased parent, even 50 years later, what are you doing? Kibut av v'ein, the Ben Ish Chai explains, and the Rabbi HaKadosh. You're giving them tremendous hana, aliyas neshama, and they can't do that for themselves. That's why Kaddish is so important. It's not a prayer for the dead, it's therapy for the living. The child, it's therapy for him like it was for the brothers. To do something for the beloved parent, somehow to pay back a little bit for all of the anguish we caused our parents by saying Kaddish or learning in their memory. You're paying them back. It's therapy for the children. Yes, you had a question? The lady had a question, I think.
Yeah, however, when Israel went out of Mitzrayim,
Go ahead.
they did not take out Yosef's bones. It was Moshe Rabbeinu who went to
Oh, what's your name? Miriam. You're cooking with gas, Miriam.
What'd she say? I didn't hear.
She asked a question. The brothers ask better. The brothers were long dead already.
Talking about your gas.
The brothers were dead. Why did Moshe Rabbeinu take the bones out? Ask better. Rav Soloveitchik fine-tunes your question, and he makes the question even starker. How do you say starker? Stronger. Vayikach Moshe's atzmas Yosef imo. Moshe took the bones of Yosef with him because he made the Jewish people swear to take my bones. So Rav Soloveitchik says he doesn't understand. There was a mitzvah. Every Jew should take gold and silver from Mitzrayim. It's a mitzvah, like putting on tefillin. Moshe Rabbeinu ignored that mitzvah and he took the bones of Joseph. The other Jews were busy with the mitzvah of what? For them, as God said, I please, daber no ba'oznei ha'am, please command the people they should go to all the jewelry stores in Cairo and take all the gold and silver. For them, it's a mitzvah. Moshe Rabbeinu ignored the mitzvah. The pasuk in Mishlei Yud, Chacham Lev Yikach Mitzvot. Moshe Rabbeinu ignored God's mitzvah, and instead of go for the gold, Yehuda, he went for the bones. So Soloveitchik said he doesn't understand. Okay, it's nice. Your grandfather made you swear to take the bones. Or your great uncle. Yosef was his great uncle, no? Great uncle Moses. But God commanded you to take the gold and the silver. Moshe, you're also Jewish, right? Daber no, speak to all the Jews to take the gold and the silver. Moshe ignored God's command. He did. And he was busy taking, the Gemara Pesachim says he ignored God's command and he was busy taking what? The bones. So what right does he have? Okay, your great uncle made you swear, but God comes before your great uncle. God came before your great uncle. How could Moses ignore God's command and take the bones instead of the gold? Said Rav Soloveitchik something incredible. As follows, he said. The Medrash says, who are the ringleaders of the plot to get rid of Yosef? Shimon and Levi. But it was Levi first. The Medrash said it was Levi. Levi was the instigator. He incited the other brothers. Whose debt of gratitude to Yosef was the greatest? He treated Levi just, even though Levi was the instigator, the troublemaker, he incited the other brothers, says the Medrash, against Yosef. Yet, despite that, Sonia, was he treated differently? Yosef showed him the same love and consideration as all the other brothers. Whose depth of gratitude of all the brothers Yehuda was greatest? Levi. Because he's the one that instigated and hatched the plot to get rid of Yosef. So Levi's depth of gratitude was the greatest of all. Levi was dead. Who's Levi's grandson? Moshe Rabbeinu. Says Rav Soloveitchik, Hakara Satov is so important that even comes before a mitzvah in the Torah. Derech Eretz Kodma LaTorah. So Moshe Rabbeinu knew that even though God said, take the gold and silver, but I'm a grandson of Levi. A grandson, Bnei Banim Kebanim. It's the same tribe, right? My tribe owes Yosef HaTzadik more than the others. So I have to be maket toif to him. It falls on me. My grandfather is dead. I'm in his place, Beryl. And therefore, said Rav Soloveitchik, therefore Moshe Rabbeinu ignored God's command to take the gold because Hakara Satoiv, i.e. Derech Eretz, Kodma LaTorah.
Who brought Levi's bones?
Huh?
Who brought Levi's bones?
Whoever brought Levi's bones, I don't know. But Moshe Rabbeinu, he had to do it because his tribe, Hakar Satoiv, was the greatest, and Derech Eretz Kodma LaTorah, and therefore ignored God's command, and he took the bones of Yosef. Now, this was not the first time he did that. At the burning bush in this week's Parsha, God commands him, let my people go down to Egypt, let my people go. He stops by Yisro. In this week's parsha, first, he doesn't go right away. This week's parsha, we're going to read this Shabbos. It says, so God says at the burning bush, go straight to Mitzrayim with the message of freedom. Does he do it? Vayelech Moshe vayoshev el yeteh chosno. He returns to his father-in-law Yisro, and he says, El Chana, please let me go and return to Mitzrayim. So Rashi is puzzled. God says, go to Egypt directly. What are you stopping off by your father-in-law and begging him, please let me go? Says Rashi, Vayoshev yeteh, he returned to Yisro, Lito Rishus. He went to ask Yisro for permission to allow him what? To go to Egypt. Because Rashi says, when he gave his daughter Tzipporah in marriage, he made what? Moses swear that he won't leave Midian unless Yisro gives him permission. What are you talking about? God just said, go to Egypt and let my people go. What are you asking permission from Yisro? And if he wouldn't give permission, he wouldn't go. Derech eretz kodma laTorah ad kedei kach beryl. It's incredible. Menschlichkeit. Midas toivos, hakoras hatoiv trumps the Torah. So after Moshe heard God's command at the burning bush, he didn't go. He said, El Chana, please, Yisrael, let me go. And if he wouldn't let him go, he wouldn't go. God says go. Derech eretz kodma. It's incredible. Ben Adam lachaveiroi comes before Rabbi Yaakov. Ben Adam lamakom. It's unbelievable. A lot of people forget that, right? Ben Adam lachaveiroi. Menschlichkeit, hakoras hatoiv, derech eretz kodma laTorah, and therefore Moshe did what he did, not once, but twice over here. More than that, it's more than, at the end of the Torah, God says, go take revenge against Midian. God says to Moshe, go take revenge against Midian for what they caused the death of 24,000 Yidden. Does he go? He sends Pinchas. Why didn't he go himself? The Medrash said, why didn't he go himself? God says, you take revenge. Nikol Mikmas B'nei. You, Moses, go take revenge for the 24,000 Yidden that were killed because of the Midianite women. He doesn't go himself, Rabbi Yaakov. He sends Pinchas. The Medrash says, why?
Moshe was a fugitive.
Because Moshe was a fugitive, Rabbi Yaakov, in Midian. Who protected him? From the KGB. I mean, they had a warrant for his arrest in Mitzrayim. Who protected him? Yisrael couldn't do anything without the Midianite king. Yisrael protected him, but under the protection of the Midianite king. Otherwise, he would have been extradited to Egypt to stand trial for murder. So since Midian protected him when he was a fugitive, hakoras hatoiv, he could not go himself, even though God says go. Incredible how far Koras HaToiv goes. So instead he sent Pinchas. What? Very good, Nechama. Nechama, very good. Why did God told him, tell your brother to strike the Nile, right? Right? Why couldn't he strike the Nile? Because the Koras HaToiv to the water, it what? Saved his life.
When they were throwing Jewish baby boys into the Nile.
Yeah, he was in the water, in the basket. Remember the little basket? Let me ask you, the water knows any difference? Does the water know any difference? But of course, Rashi says, hakoras hatoiv to the water. But let's get real, Chava. Let's get real. Does the water know that it's being hit by Aaron or Moses? Does it care? To whom? It's not for the water. Hakoras hatoiv is not for the water, it's for me. I have to inculcate into myself the midah of hakoras hatoiv, not for the water and not for anybody else. It's for my own tikkun hanefesh. I like the word inculcate. The midah of hakoras hatoiv into me. So you think hakoras hatoiv, it's not so much for the other guy. It's for my tikkun hashleimut haneshama. Rabbeinu Bachai said the water couldn't care less. And Moses couldn't strike the dirt because it protected him, right? When he buried the mitzvah in the sand, the dirt couldn't care less who strikes it with kinim. It's not for the dirt, it's not for the water. It's what? It's for a person. And later on in the Torah says, tray for meat, give it to the dogs. Right? Why? So Rashi quotes the Midrash, because the dogs didn't bark when I left Egypt. The dogs, when there's death, there's a plague raging, dogs are very sensitive. They didn't bark and frighten us when we left Egypt. So therefore, what? We have to give Fido non-kosher meat, because Fido's great-great-grandfather didn't frighten us in Egypt. Fido knows the difference. The dog knows why I'm giving you the tray for meat.
No.
Why am I giving you the tray for meat? What kind of payback is it? It's not for the dog, it's for me. To develop in me the mid of Akoras Atoiv, even though the dog doesn't know the difference, the water doesn't know the difference, it's not for them, it's for me. To become a better human being, to perfect my neshama, I have to express Akoras Atoiv, even though the other guy doesn't know the difference and doesn't care. That's how, and Rabbeinu Bachai and the Sefer Chinuch say the whole Jewish religion stand on what principle? Hakorat Hatov. That's how to perfect yourself. And that's Derech Eretz Kadma La Torah. Pretty interesting. Now, in the Pasha that we read, Pashas Vayechi, Yaakov gives Yehuda a bracha. He gives Yehuda a bracha, and he says, Uleven shinayim mechalav. Teeth whiter than milk. What is it, a dentist commercial? Yehuda's going to be a dentist. What kind of bracha is Yaakov Avinu giving Yehuda? Uleven shinayim mechalav. Teeth whiter than milk. It's a toothpaste commercial. So to answer this question, right before that, he says, La yosa shevit beYehuda at kiyova Shiloh. That Mashiach is going to come from Shevet Yehuda. Right after he says that, he says teeth whiter than milk. What does A got to do with B? So the Gemara in Ksubah says something amazing. I love milkshakes. But if someone smiles on me, I feel better. Because a milkshake, I'm finished in 2 minutes. But someone's shmeichel, that stays with me much longer than a milkshake. So the Gemara in Ksubah says, Lo ben shinayim mechalav. If you show someone a toothy smile, it's better than buying him a milkshake. That stays with him. So Rav Pam Zatzal said, so why is that next to Kiyova Shiloh? Why is that next to the bracha of Mashiach? If you want Mashiach to come, smile on each other. Some people just can't smile. They're like constipated. They show you a sour face. If you want Shiloh to come, if you want Mashiach to come, L'ben shinayim echalav, said the Rav. Show a fellow Yidel a smiley face. Put on a happy face. And if enough Yidden did that, Mashiach, the Shiloh would come, and therefore the Psukim are right next to each other. And the Mishnah says, Havei mekabel es kala adam b'sever panim yafot. Receive every human being with a maza sever panim yafot. Smiley face. Smiley face. And Rapam went even further. If you look in Pashas Bamidbar 6, the Birchat Kohanim, Yor Hashem Ponav Alecha. Yor Hashem Ponav Alecha, what does that mean? So Rashi says, God shows you Ponim Sechakot. God will shine his face on you. What in the brachos? In Bamidbar 6, says Rashi, Ponim Sechakot. God shows you what? Smiley face. So Rapam said, if you smile on a fellow Jew, you're doing the mitzvah of what? V'halachta b'drachav. Walking in God's ways. Mahu afata. So the next time you smile on a fellow Yid, which mitzvah are you doing? V'halachta b'drachav. What does that mean, Yehuda? To walk in his ways. Mahu afata. And if enough Yidden did that, Shiloh would come. Isn't that incredible? Therefore, the psukim are, it's not a dentist commercial or toothpaste commercial either. Okay? Smile on a fellow Yid. And enough Yidden did that, that's the way to bring the Mashiach. Now, Yosef HaTzadik, you would listen to this. Yosef HaTzadik is the symbol of Klal Yisrael. A man of vision and dreams. The ideal son and brother. His character and story is the story of Israel. Don't we dream of justice, Israel, the great dreamer, justice, peace? We're the victim of hate by our family of nations, the kina, the sina, like the brothers had to Yosef, the nations of the world have to us. Falsely accused, sold into slavery and exile. The sun and the moon and the stars bowed to Yosef. Why did they do that, Rabbi Yaakov? Because the Talmud says in Tractate Shabbos, Ein Mazel Yisrael. The nations of the world are under the heavenly constellations. But Am Yisrael, Ein Mazel Yisrael. The sun and the stars bow to us. We're not under their supervision like the Umat HaOlam. So Yosef HaTzadik, he is the symbol of Klal Yisrael, victim of hatred, the dreamer of justice, the eternal victim, falsely accused, sold into slavery and exile, and the sun and the stars bow to him, because Ein Mazel Yisrael. The other nations are under the constellations. It's in the stars. But Am Yisrael, we're above the stars. The stars bow to us, and therefore the sun and the stars bow to whom? Yosef. Yosef is the symbol of what? Of Klal Yisrael. Interesting. Now, Yaakov Avinu, you ever wonder why? Why is Kever Rachel the most popular kever throughout Jewish history? Kever Rachel by far is the number one kever where you didn't go to pray throughout the centuries. Even when you couldn't go to Marsa Machpelah, you know that? You could always go to Kever Rachel. Why is Kever Rachel so popular? Tell you a big chiddush. Yaakov Avinu says, "V'ni b'voy b'padan Aram," and he calls Yosef and he says, "Im no motzosi chen b'yanecha, sim no yotcha tachas yerechi, I'll not take." 3 times he says, "Please, please, if I found favor in your eyes, please do with me a chesed. Please don't bury me in Mitzrayim. Please bury me in Eretz Yisrael." Why is he pleading so much? 3 times he says, "No. Im no matzosi chen b'yanecha, please, I found favor. Please put your hand under my thigh, and please do a chesed. Don't bury me in Egypt." Why is he begging most? It's your son. Why are you begging him so much? Because he knows that Yosef has some grudge against him. You didn't do the same for my mother. You didn't do the same for my mother. Now all of a sudden, you remember, Rashi makes it even fine. Rashi says, I'm bothering you to take me to Eretz Yisrael and bury me in the cave of Machpelah, and I didn't do that for your mother. And I didn't take her there. V'yadati sheyesh b'libcha alai. How do you say that in Yiddish? Osta bais hearts of mir. Who speaks Yiddish here? Rashi quotes a medrash that Yaakov told Yosef, "V'yodati sheyesh b'libcha alai." I know, my son, that you have it in your heart against me. I think it's called infamy. How do you say Yodati, I know, says Yaakov, sheyesh b'libcha alai. You broiges on me. All these years, that's why maybe you never contacted me when you were Viceroy of Egypt. You couldn't send me a Facebook SMS. How far is Egypt from Mitzrayim? You're the Viceroy of Egypt. Can't you contact your father knowing how much he misses you? V'yadati sheyesh b'libcha alai. All these years you have a grudge against me that I didn't treat your mother with the proper respect. I buried her in a pauper's grave. Avudalacha. But you should know, my son, shall pi adibur. I did it because God told me to bury her over there. She will be Ezra Lebaneha when the Jews go into Golut under the Buzaraden on the way to Bavel. Where they're going to pass? That lonely, isolated grave. The Yotzta Rachel al Kivra. Rachel is going to come out of her grave. Ubacha, she will cry. Umvakeshet aleim rachamim. Shenemar, koil barama nishma. There's a voice heard on high. The Pasuk Yirmiyahu, there's a voice heard on high. Who is weeping? Rachel is weeping for her children. And God tells her, Yesh sacha lepolasech num Hashem. You're going to have, your weeping is going to tuoif. How do you say tuoif? Will accomplish. Vishavu banim, vishavu banim, vishavu banim lugvulam. We are back. In whose chus? Rachel's tears. So my son, you misjudged me. You thought I disrespected your mother? All these years you accused me falsely. You didn't know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told me to bury her over there. Because when the Yidden go into Galut, they're going to pass that lonely grave, and her tears will bring us back. The only reason we're back is because of Rachel's tears. So my son, you misjudged me. You know why Kever Rachel is so popular, Sonia? It's the eternal monument to be dan lekafschus, even your own parents. Could Yosef figure it out all these years? Yosef had Abay's hearts. How do you say it in English? Abay's hearts. Rashi said, Sheyesh balipchala. He was upset with his father. He thought his father disrespected his mother. He didn't know that God commanded his father to bury her over there. She will be a help for your children. So Kever Rachel is the eternal monument that even though you can't figure it out, always be dan lekafschus, even your own father. Have a done kol adam lekafschus. Even when it's impossible to figure it out. Could Yosef figure it out? He didn't give his father the benefit of doubt. My father didn't treat my mother with proper respect. And perhaps that's why all the years, Sonia, never sent him an SMS, Viceroy of Egypt, or Facebook, a fax, garnished. Therefore, Kever Rachel is so popular throughout Jewish history. Now, Yosef could have said, Pa, well, if that's the case, she'll be a help for Jewish people. I'll bury you next to Ma. That you could also be a help for the Jewish people. You could have said that, no? If that's important, the Yidden are going to go into Golut, they'll pass your grave too. He didn't say that. Because not Yaakov's chus, it's only Rachel's chus. What she did for her sister, she gave the Simonim. She was Mesiras Nefesh for her sister. Therefore, and only in her, not in Yaakov's chus. The Geula Shalema will only come, V'shavu bana gvulam, in the chus of what? Of Rachel Imenu. She gave up not to embarrass her sister. Remember that fateful wedding night, the old switcheroo? She gave over the Simonim. She never knew that Yaakov would take her on the rebound. Willing to give up the man she loved. A lifetime of happiness, not to cause shame and anguish to her sister. That is going to bring the Geula. That Mesiras Nefesh, not Yaakov, not Yitzchak, not Abraham. It's V'shavu bana l'gvulam. It's only the Mesiras Nefesh of Rachel Imenu. That God tells the prophet, V'shavu banim l'gvulam, we will come back only in the schus of Rachel Imenu. Yes? The Mesiras Nefesh. Shirley. All these years. That's a good question. Why didn't Yaakov say? He felt the anger, Yesh Balipcha, why didn't he level with him all these years? That's a great question. Why? They say, why is a crooked letter? Really, Sonia, why didn't he tell him 22 years ago? Instead of walking around with this Yehuda misconception? That's a great question.
And also, he was,
If he knew, V'yadati, sheyesh balipcha, I know you have it in your heart for me. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Good question. What did you say?
He was also concerned that his father would know that his brothers were kidnappers. He didn't want them to know that.
No, but that's why he never sent a message all the years.
Well, that's one of the answers.
Well,
You know,
Rashi said he knew. He said they wanted to uproot the Shor, Shimon and Levi, Achim, Klei Hamas. They were the instigators against Yosef. Rashi claims that he knew. Rashi claims that he knew. Shimon and Levi, Achim, Klei Hamas. Violence, Rashi says, against brother Joe. And they wanted to uproot the Shor. Who's the Shor? Rotzelako de Yosef, Shenikra Shor, Bechor Shoyra Hodalo. So Rashi claims that he did know.
It was only intuition.
Okay?
Didn't get in the comment as a result.
Okay?
Rabbi,
Yeah. Go ahead.
I learned something today.
Go ahead.
Because when Rabin gave away Kevarachel, there was such
He didn't want to give it away. He wanted to give.
outcry in
He
the
wanted
country.
beautiful.
Right.
Even the lefties. You heard what
They went crazy.
in 1995 during the Oslo Accords.
That's right.
They,
I never knew why.
Rabin wanted to give Abu Mamzer. He wanted to give Kever Ochel. Even the lefties went to demonstrate. Even the lefties. There's something about Kever Ochel, the eternal monument to be dan lekafschus, even when you can't figure it out. Ad kedei kach. Give the benefit of the doubt, right? Ad kedei kach. He didn't know. Now Yaakov gives the grandchildren a blessing. Vayevarchem bayoimahu lemor. He blessed them on that day, repeating. Shirley, which day was it? Wednesday or Thursday? It says Vayevarchem bayoimahu lemor. He blessed them on that day, repeating. Now, what day was it? Monday or never on a Monday or Tuesday? Now, the Torah is not a history book. What difference what day it was? And what's the word lamo? He blessed them on that day, repeating. The Torah is not a history book. Rav Pam Zatzal said, Vayevarchem, you have to know where to put the commas. Vayevarchem, he blessed them. Bayoimahu lemor. What's the greatest blessing a grandfather can give grandchildren? Live every day as it would be bayoimahu. Today is the first day, not Hallmark, 3,700 years before Hallmark. Yaakov Avinu blessed his kinderlach. Vayevarchem kama, bayoimahu lemor. Keep repeating to yourself, today is that special day. Every day should be unwrapped like a special gift. I haven't got time for the pain. Every day is bayoimahu. It might be that day. Who knows what will be here tomorrow? I haven't time to be angry, upset, jealous. I haven't got the time. Because every day is what? Bayoimahu. Every day is that special day. Lemor, keep repeating that. And if we did that, what a wonderful world it would be. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. Make that call. Don't wait till tomorrow. He said, she said. Bayoimahu. Every day is that special day. Keep repeating that. And if you live like that, then what? What a wonderful world it would be. Isn't that amazing? You have to know where to put the commas. Otherwise, I had a grandpa who lived with us. So I knocked on his door and I said, had a knife and fork in my hand. I said, let's eat Grandpa. He said, ah. I tried again. I said, let's eat Grandpa. Now you're talking, Sonny. What's for dinner? You gotta know where to put the commas. Vayevarchem kama. Bayoimahu lemor. Keep repeating to yourself lemor. Otherwise the word lemor doesn't fit. Every day of your life is that special day. If you lived like that, who would have time to be upset, angry, resentful, jealous, etc.? Pretty interesting, right? Now Yaakov said, Vayikra Yaakov Habanav, he said, gather together, and I will tell you what will happen to you ba'achrit hayamim. What does achrit hayamim mean? The end of days. And all of a sudden he switches topics. Yaakov, you're titin emet Yaakov, you're ish emet. You promised to tell me achrit hayamim, and you didn't do it. Or did you? He wanted to tell them the exact date. He couldn't. But he told them, you want achrit hayamim? Hey, Yosef. What does Yosef mean? Gather together, v'agida. The word aguda. Achdut. That will bring achrit hayamim. I can't tell you the exact date, guys, but I can tell you, hey, Yosef, if you gather together, v'agida, you become an aguda echad. That's the way to bring what? The achrit hayamim. Unfortunately, we don't have that today. Right? He koftu. What does the word kibbutz mean? Kibbutz. Gather together. Hey, Yosef. And that's the way to bring achrit hayamim. So I think we have a long way to go. What? What? Pretty interesting, right? Now, he calls Yosef, and he tells him, he makes him promise that what? That he's going to take him to Eretz Yisrael. Then it says, Vayishtachu Yisrael Rosh HaMitah. After Yosef swears to him, Israel bows to the head of the bed. Why does Israel bow to the head of the bed?
Because Yosef was the viceroy.
So Rashi says that even though he was his son, he bowed to him because your son is a king, you have to show him respect. Okay? He bowed to Yosef as a sign of respect, even though it's not covered for a son to bow to a father, but if your father is a king, you have to give him honor. Then Rashi brings another pshat barrel. When Rashi brings two pshatim, his favorite second one. The second pshat is, who did he bow? A Rosh HaMitah. Hofech atzmoi letzad hashchina. He bowed to God's presence. Mikan shashchina hovers above a sickbed. So who's the Rosh HaMitah? He was bowing to this God's presence, because God's presence is found the Rosh Shel HaCholeh. The Shechina is found in a sickbed. Understand this, Rashi? I don't. Where's the Shechina not found? I mean, the prophet Isaiah says, the entire universe is full of God's presence, Sonia. Why are you restricting him to a sickbed? He's all over. Why does Rashi say, the Shechina is found in a sickbed? Rav Pam Zatzal said something incredible. Fasten your seatbelts. I'm saying that, but he can say it. Of course the Shechina is all over. But when a person is healthy, he's too busy to think about the Shechina. He's in mergers and acquisitions, business meetings, cruises, conferences. He's too busy to think about the Shechina. Lo yaleinu, when a person is in a sick bed, in a hospital bed, he's no longer worried about mergers and executions. I mean mergers and acquisitions and business conferences. Then all of a sudden he remembers the Shekhinah. So true. Time out. Person's in a hospital bed, lo yaleinu. He's not worried about the business dealings, all of the conferences with the cruises. Then all of a sudden he remembers what? God. That's human nature. That's human nature. Even though Isaiah says, Maloi choretz kavodo, yes, but we tend to forget when things are going well. That's human nature. But lo yaleinu, a person is sick, all of a sudden he turns to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's God's game plan. It's not a punishment. Hashem says, remember me? Let's get reacquainted. Who's your best friend? Right? God wants to hear from us. It's a signal to get the SMS to get reacquainted, right? That's what human nature is, not a punishment, no? So anyway, Vayechi Yaakov. Vayechi Yaakov. Yaakov lived. You could have said Yaakov. What was Vayechi Yaakov? Vayechi is gematria. Who's good in math? Vav Yud Ches Yud is gematria 34.
34.
What were the best years of our lives? Remember that movie, The Best Years of Our Lives? I'm dating myself. What were the best years of Yaakov's life? The first 17 years before Yosef was kidnapped, Shvayas Shana, and the last 17 years when he was reunited with Yosef. Vayechi, Gematria 34. The best years of his life was when he had his beloved Yosef. The first 17 years, and then the end, the last 17 years. That for him was living, right? Pretty interesting. He said, do with me chesed ve'emet. So Rashi said, a chesed you do with a dead person is a chesed shel emet. Because you do a chesed for a live person. What's in it for me? You know, you'll pay me back eventually. Chesed shel emet, she'eino metzapa tashim gemul. You know that the dead person can what? Can't pay you back. So that is what? A chesed shel emet. A chesed shel emet. Pretty interesting. He says, if I have found grace in your eyes, please bury me in Israel. Why does he have to be so poetic about it? Please bury me in Israel, even though I didn't do it to your mom. I have to say chen. If I have found grace in your eyes, says the Ben Ish Chai. Yaakov was teaching us. He's begging him to be buried in Israel. I think it's called word association. When you say Eretz Yisrael, what should be the first word? Chen. Grace. Loving grace. When you think Eretz Yisrael, think Chen. And therefore he said, in word association, Yaakov was teaching us. Eretz Yisrael is mentioned. What's the first word pops into your head? Chen. Chen is such a beautiful, rich word, you really cannot translate it. It means beauty, grace, and charm. It's such a beautiful word. Eretz Yisrael, think Chen. Yaakov Avinu. The first Zionist? No. I think God was the first religious Zionist. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, no? I think so. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was the first religious Zionist. But Yaakov Avinu. And it's so fits in with his character. Because on his way to Mitzrayim to see his beloved son, he's about to go see Yosef, hasn't seen him in 22 years, and God says, Al tira merdo Mitzrayim. Don't be afraid to go see your son in Egypt. If God says don't be afraid, that means he what?
He was afraid.
Why was he afraid? Says Rashi, Lefi shahoya meitzar. He was afraid and upset al sheniskak lotzet lechutz la'aretz. He was upset and afraid that he has to leave Pisgat Zev. Hebron. Even though it means seeing his beloved son who hasn't seen in 22 years. He was still upset and anguished. He's forced to go to Chutz La'aretz. That's how much he loved Eretz Yisrael. God had to reassure him, no, you have to go down.
But I will bring you up.
Then I will bring you up. Meaning what? His body, right? His body was buried back here, but Pishoye Metzar, he was anguished, al sheniskak. He was forced to go to Chutz La'aretz. Even though it meant seeing his beloved son, he was still very upset and anguished that he has to leave the Holy Land. At kedei kach did Yaakov love Eretz Yisrael. Now, he gives the brachas to his sons, right? Now, it looks like some of them didn't get any brachas. Right? It looks like Reuven and Shimon and Levi didn't get any brachas. So how come it says he blessed them all? Did all of them get the brachas? Doesn't say he blessed Reuven and Shimon. Rashi said, "V'lo yesh mehem shaloi beracham." Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, they only got rebuke. So Rashi said, "No, vayevorech otam kulam b'mashma." Even though Reuven, Shimon, and Levi's bracha is not in the Torah, but the Pasuk says, Vayevorech otam. What does that mean? He blessed them all, even though it's not in the Torah. Or Achayim doesn't agree with Rashi. I'm a text man. the text doesn't say that he blessed Reuven and Shimon and Levi. Rashi claims he blessed them anyway. Text doesn't say that. It says the Arachaim HaKadosh. No. When a parent, towards the end of his life, gives rebuke to a child, that's a bracha. Because it makes the child aware of where his responsibility is, where his shortcomings are. Once he's aware, then the child can correct his behavior. So when a parent close to the end of his life gives a child a rebuke, that's a bracha. Otherwise, the child doesn't know what he has to what? Be mitaken hamidot. That's the bracha. Reuven, you're unstable like water. You don't think. Sit and make cheshbon hanefesh. And Shimon and Levi, you're too violent. It's not hatred, it's love. Correct your midot. And coming from a parent close to the end of his life, says Orachaim, that's a true bracha. Self-improvement. Otherwise, you'll go through life not knowing how to improve yourself unless the parent rebukes you close to death. Then the child will take it as a bracha. Yes?
Rav Nachman Kahana says that Shimon and Levi, unfortunately, were the only ones to take up their sister's honor, and that therefore created an impression on the rest of the people around them.
Right.
That not all of the family believe in Dina's honor, and therefore it was only because of this that that really Yaakov wished that all the brothers had taken up their sister's.
So why was he upset? Rashi says he made Shimon and Levi in charge of the Mishrad HaChinuch. Look in Rashi. So if he's upset, they're violent, why are they in charge of the Mishrad HaChinuch? They were the teachers of Klal Yisrael. Look in Rashi. He made them teachers of Klal Yisrael.
For that very reason, they give the hashpah. That's what he said. That's what they're. That's what.
So why was he upset?
He wasn't.
I'm still the head of the family. Why didn't you consult me? Hey,
But it was quiet after.
why didn't you consult me? At least talk it over with dear old dad. That's why he's upset. But their anger should be taught to defend a fellow Jew. They felt the pain of their sister, so he made them in charge of Mishnah Chinuch. Rashi says that. Right? They acted, they felt the pain of a fellow Jew, but take counsel from the head of the family.
Yeah.
And that's why he's upset. Thank you very much.